My name is Dave, and I'm on my way to becoming a game developer. I've created a few really cool projects, but need to hone my level design skills a bit more before I actually create a full game. And that fact makes me want to force Yoshi to puke on people. Okay, I don't actually need to be mad to do that one. In my last project, our hero Rook almost got beat to death by a very angry cardboard box. But to no one's surprise, that didn't really solve the whole entire town and all of its residents are about to get crushed by a crumbling glacier issue. In video games, problems like these are typically solved by entering a dungeon and ruining a boss's entire life. But this is supposed to be an adventure, so players are going to have to explore an overworld in order to get there. So, here we go. This is the time I created an enchanted forest for a game that doesn't exist. After finally meeting up with Mayor Vani, Rook discovers that a heat wave has settled on this normally freezing environment. This is causing the glacier that houses the area to become unstable. All he has to go off of is that the heat seems to be blowing in from the Midlight Forest to the north. So it's time to head out! Into the void, because I haven't created it yet. In my previous two projects, I sketched some detailed maps to help me design the areas, but they were very time-consuming. So I decided to try something newer and simpler. I started by creating a series of empty boxes, each one representing roughly a camera's width and height. I then drew a red line through them to represent the fastest path to take to gain access to the dungeon. Once that was done, I carved in some passageways and voila! Not exactly a feast for the eyes, but it provided the structure I needed without taking up hours upon hours of my time. Now for the tile set. You'd think after having experience creating a few of these that I wouldn't have a hard time making another one. But I did. I had originally intended to have the environment be supersized, like you might see in games like Pikmin. But after wasting an entire week trying to create a single wall tile, I began to feel sick to my stomach and had to reevaluate. And that's how the magical Midlight trees were born. While the glacier above darkens the area, the fruit of the Midlight trees emit a glow that guides anyone brave enough to venture into the forest. I also wanted to bring back my snow and snowbed tiles from my town project. But I felt like the snowbed tiles looked too bright for a dark forest and too similar to the snow tiles. So I created whatever the heck this is. Can a tree grow on it? Sure. Life's better when you don't think. Another thing I disliked in my town project was that the snow tiles looked a little monotonous, even with the pathways added in. So I added some leaf and grass tuft tiles to liven things up, and boy did they help. Now, I'm a man of structure and planning. I don't like doing things haphazardly. But overworlds are more about exploration and sightseeing than puzzles or pathways. And since this was my first time creating something like that, haphazard was, unfortunately, the only way to go. This drove me a little crazy. But I got the hang of it after a while and tiled a pretty cool looking forest. I'm not completely satisfied with it, but that's okay. Making it incorrectly and looking things over after the fact has given me some ideas of how to do it better in the future. Quick editor's note here. I realized that one of the reasons I didn't like how it turned out was because I made it way too big. Well, lesson learned. One thing I really like about forests in games is the potential to get lost. A good example being the mysterious forest from Link's Awakening. It's small, but you can still lose your way if you're not careful. So while tiling, I did a few things to try and disorient players. The first was to copy a small section of the forest and paste it elsewhere with minor changes. The second was to add groves beneath the trees that connect to areas that are otherwise inaccessible. This meant I needed an additional tile set to represent them. I took a lot of inspiration from the forest in Stardew Valley to help capture the feel of being beneath tree branches when you have an overhead view. I thought it turned out really well. Now, you might be about to say, hold on a second, the trees look taller now that you're beneath them. But before you do that, let me distract you with twinkly lights. I've always felt that beautiful or surreal areas add a sense of wonder to exploration. So I'm really proud of these groves. They'll also take the sting out of getting lost, I hope. You know what video games don't have enough of? Giant tree dungeons. It's a disservice to giant tree lovers like myself. So that's what I created for the dungeon entrance. It's probably the most detailed pixel art I've ever done. And boy, oh boy, did it hurt me. But I don't want people to just be able to waltz in there. So let's require Rook to have a special ability in order to gain access. It's my belief that adventure games should frequently give you new toys to play with that grant you access to new parts of the world. And while they typically come in the form of equipment, I really like the idea of gaining new abilities as a type of power. It makes me feel like I've grown stronger rather than simply more resourceful. So say hello to the Arc Lasso. This acts kind of like the boomerang from top-down Zelda games, but with a twist. When the lasso lands on specific objects, a targeting reticle will appear around it. When the player presses the action button again, the object will be pulled in his current direction. Quite aggressively, I might add. So whatever it is you're pulling, just make sure it isn't dangerous. Players will need to locate a swordsman shrine in order to obtain the Arc Lasso power. But I didn't stop there. I wanted the very act of acquiring the ability to feel cool and fun. So it's cutscene time. I've always loved games that let you see power flowing into your player character when gaining a new ability. Some good examples are some of the Metroid games, where you get to watch Samus' suit transform, or Hollow Knight, where you see the knight absorb his new move. But by far, my favorite example is when you slay a dragon in Skyrim. I'll let the scene itself do the talking. I started my cutscene off by placing a transparent dark purple sprite overhead. This not only gave off the illusion of the area getting darker, but also made the orb I spawned in next look like it was glowing. Next, I created some smaller orbs to spawn from within the main orb and flow into Rook. It ain't the high-budget eye candy that comes with absorbing a dragon's soul, but I thought it turned out great. I wasn't super happy with how fighting the enemies in my last project felt, but I figured out one of the reasons why while battling King Boxer. Hitting big enemies is fun. So I made sure to beef up the enemy designs for the Midlight Forest. This resulted in the Snow Mift, which will slowly patrol towards you. Next was the Celsicle, which will pop out of the water and shoot icicles at you. And sure enough, attacking them was more fun. I still feel like something's missing, but I've taken a step in the right direction. With the stage set, there was one teensy little problem left. For a snowy biome going through a heat wave, this doesn't look very heated. So I added a heat wave tile layer with some grass tiles and placed it over top of the snow tile layer. The cool thing about GameMaker is that you can set game layers as visible or invisible in the UI or in-game through code. So when the player clears the dungeon, I can make the heatwave layer turn invisible. And because the Celsicles are located in the water, they'll be frozen below the surface once the heatwave is dealt with. I think it's a cool way to reward players for finishing the dungeon. But most importantly, it will allow them to see that they've had a positive impact on the world while completing their obligatory duties. A lot of games make you wait until the very end to make you feel like your actions have accomplished anything. But I've always loved it when they go the extra mile and show you that the steps you're taking along the way are making a difference. Even if it's just some extra flowers appearing, or watching a kindly tree spirit spontaneously rot away. Thanks for that, Nintendo. Now for the demonstration. I don't have any last-minute announcements this time around, so if you'd rather skip the tour, just stop watching the video. Bye.